Hey, sleepy friends. Welcome to another hush story from the pages of forgotten history. Tonight, we drift through the rain-soaked gaslit streets of Victorian England, where lace gloves hide secret letters and chaperones listen for every whispered vow. Curl up, close your eyes, and let these soft, dusty details carry you off to sleep. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always comforting to know who's out there in the hush night with us. And if these sleepy stories calm your mind, don't forget to subscribe for more gentle, boring histories to hush you into dreamland. You wake before the coals in the bedroom grate have lost their glow. You lie still for a moment, listening to the distant rattle of a milk cart on the street below. Mary will come in soon, brisk and bright-eyed, ready to bind you into the shape that fashion demands. A shape that will carry your family's hopes, like a delicate teacup balanced on a gloved hand. A dressing table gleams in the gray light, scattered with hairpins, a tiny pot of lavender pomade, a folded letter tucked beneath your grandmother's locket. Outside, the first rain of the day taps gently on the glass. You sit up, drawing the bed curtains aside, and let the chill air bite at your bare shoulders. Today the corset will cinch tighter than yesterday. Today, Thomas Wetherby is expected in the parlor, and every crease, every ribbon, every carefully pinned curl will whisper about your worth. Mary pulls the laces with steady hands. You breathe out as far as you can, the ribs pressing inward, the air squeezed tight until you feel your heartbeat in your ears. Not too tight, you manage to whisper, but you both know it must be tight enough. Your mother's voice echoes from the landing. Remember, your speech must be clear when he calls. When the final hook slips into place, you turn in the mirror. Your waist is impossibly narrow. Your mother nods in approval. Then come the layers, the bustle pad, petticoats rustling like secret letters, stockings, boots with tiny pearl buttons. At each step, you swallow your breath and hold your posture straight. The teacup must balance. The conversation must flow. Your mother's gloved hand rests on your shoulder. It's not about beauty, dear. It's about worth. Later, you're perched on the settee, your gloved hands folded in your lap, every movement practiced under your mother's watchful eye. Thomas sits across from you, a polite distance apart, his coat tails sharp against the velvet chair. He asks about the flowers in your hair, the new piece you're learning on the pianoforte. You speak just enough to seem clever, never so much to seem bold. Your mother pretends to read her needlework, but her ears are keener than any sparrow's. You feel the weight of your skirts pressing your legs numb, the heat of the coals warming your ankles. A single drop of rain trickles down the window pane beside you. Every word between you and Thomas feels like a step on a rope bridge, strung over a deep hush. The air outside is damp with a promise of rain, the cobblestones slick under the carriage wheels. You lift your skirts as Thomas offers his gloved hand to help you step in. The scent of horse sweat and wet leather mixes with the faint lavender you dabbed at your wrists before leaving the house. Inside the carriage, your mother sits opposite, an ever-watchful guardian of your virtue and your future. Through the small window, you catch glimpses of London, chimneys coughing out smoke, ragged children splashing through puddles, iron street lamps flickering like distant fireflies. Thomas clears his throat and asks if you're comfortable, as if either of you could ever be entirely comfortable in this strange dance of polite courtship. Your gloved fingers rest on your lap, twisting a small embroidered handkerchief. The journey up Sydenham Hill stretches ahead, and the hush of the rainy city rides with you like an extra passenger, whispering that everything you see may soon belong to your memory alone. As the carriage crests the hill, the Crystal Palace appears like a mirage of iron and light. Even the dreary drizzle can't dim its thousands of glass panes. They catch what little sun remains, shattering it into tiny diamonds that drip down the metal ribs like dew. You lean closer to the window, breath misting the glass. Behind you, your mother tuts softly, A lady must never appear too eager, but you can't help it. This place is a promise of things you've only glimpsed in books. Palm trees taller than your house, mechanical birds that sing without breath, staircases winding up into greenhouses that seem to touch the sky. Beside you, Thomas shifts. His knee bumps yours, just for a heartbeat, scandalous, but hidden by the folds of your skirt. Magnificent, isn't it? He says, his voice lower now, as if the carriage walls keep secrets better than your mother's sharp eyes. You nod. For a moment, your reflection in the window shows you both. Two young people pressed together by iron, glass, and expectation. Inside the crystal palace, you're swallowed whole by warmth and greenery. The glass ceiling arches high above you, so far away that the echo of your footsteps feels like voices in a cathedral. Exotic palms stretch their fronds overhead, their leaves bigger than any bonnet you've ever worn. A parrot flaps by, its feathers the green of envy and unspoken wishes. You trail behind Thomas as he guides you through the indoor jungle. Your mother's parasol taps against the tiled floor, a gentle reminder that you are watched, always. A family in fine coats passes you, the lady's skirts brushing yours. She offers a tight smile, eyes dropping to the worn hem of your traveling gown. For a moment, shame prickles at the back of your neck. Then Thomas glances back at you, offering his arm, and the shame melts like sugar in tea. When he asks if you'd like to see the butterfly house next, you almost say yes too quickly. You remember your mother's lesson, moderation in every delight. So you only nod, your lips curving in a polite half-smile. But inside, 1,000 tiny wings are already fluttering. The air inside the butterfly house is warm and sweet, heavy with the scent of overripe fruit laid out on porcelain plates for the butterflies to feast on. Wings flicker past your cheek, iridescent blues, sunset oranges, colors that make your carefully chosen ribbons look drab by comparison. Thomas leans closer, pretending to point out a species pinned in a glass case. "Did you know," he murmurs, "that some butterflies travel thousands of miles just to find a place to rest?" You risk a glance at your mother, who is occupied scolding the footman for smudged glass. Thomas's breath stirs the fine hairs at your temple. You want to ask, "And where do we rest?" But you only smile, the question tucked like a secret in your gloved palm. A swallowtail lands on your shoulder. Thomas's eyes soften as he watches it unfold its wings, delicate, fragile, determined. The hush between you hums like a promise. After the butterflies, your mother insists you pause for tea. You find yourselves in one of the Crystal Palace's elegant tea rooms, all white linen, polished silver, and waiters in stiff collars. The rain has found its way inside on the hems of dresses, the drip-drip of umbrellas left by the door. You sit across from Thomas at a small round table. A single rose in a glass vase leans toward you like it's eavesdropping. Thomas pours your tea, his gloved hand steady, though you notice how his thumb taps the teapot's handle. A nervous habit, perhaps. Beneath the table, your foot accidentally brushes his boot. You freeze, so does he. Neither of you looks up, but the hush between you grows heavy with unspoken thrills. Your mother fans herself beside you, oblivious. Outside the tea room's grand windows, the rain turns the gardens to watercolor blurs. You dare to lift your eyes, meeting Thomas's across the porcelain cup. For a single heartbeat, you both imagine a world without chaperones, without whispers, without lace gloves. Then your mother clears her throat, and the daydream dissolves into the steam rising from your tea. It's Aunt Caroline, your mother's older sister, who turns the conversation to your future, as always. She's fussing with the lace at her throat, eyes darting between you and Thomas, as if she can see the shadows of your thoughts stitched into your gloves. You're a sensible girl, she tells you later, when Thomas steps away to arrange for the carriage home. But don't be too sensible, Elena. Affection is worth more than status, in the long years of a marriage. You nod, cheeks burning. Such advice should not be spoken aloud in a respectable tea room. But Aunt Caroline has always had a way of pinning the truth down like one of those butterflies, delicate yet undeniable. From the corner of your eye, you watch Thomas speak with the footman. His shoulders are tense under his fine coat. You wonder if he's worrying about the expensive tea and scones, or the thunderclouds rolling in beyond the glass roof, or the words you haven't yet dared to say. You press your hand to your bodice, feeling the flutter beneath, a tiny rebellion that no corset can contain. By the time you leave the Crystal Palace, dusk has turned the world to a blur of rain and gaslight. The carriage creaks under the weight of damp skirts, muddy boots, and the hush that's settled like a velvet shawl over your shoulders. You watch Thomas's reflection in the window. His brow furrows as droplets chase each other down the glass. A shiver runs through you, though the carriage is warm enough. It's not the cold that makes you tremble. It's the knowledge that tonight's soft words and accidental touches have pushed you both closer to a promise that can't be unspoken. Your mother dozes lightly, her bonnet slipping sideways. Outside, lamplighters move through the streets like wandering stars, lighting one pool of golden flame after another. Thomas shifts forward, just enough so his knee brushes yours again. He doesn't pull away. In the hush of the carriage, you breathe him in. The faint scent of soap and damp wool, a crackle of rain on the roof, the sound of your own heart daring to hope. The thunderstorm breaks as you reach home. The horse stamps impatiently at the gate, rain pouring off the brim of Thomas's hat as he helps you down. Your skirts are sodden by the time you reach the front door, your mother bustling inside with exasperated huffs about ruined hemlines. You catch a glimpse of Thomas standing in the dark, rain cascading over him like a baptism. For one reckless second, you want to run back out, grab his hand, and pull him inside into the warm hush of your parlor, your hallway, your life. Instead, you stand in the doorway, your gloved hand pressed to the carved frame. He tips his hat, water dripping from the brim, and says nothing, yet the silence carries more than words ever could. Inside, you peel off your damp gloves. Your mother calls for dry slippers. But you still feel the storm on your skin, in your chest, in the secret promise you now carry like a hidden letter in your pocket. It happens 2 nights later, the knock on the door, the footman's urgent voice, your father's brow creasing as he listens to Thomas speak in the study. You stand in the parlor, embroidery forgotten in your lap, your heart pounding so loud you're sure your mother must hear. When your father returns, his eyes soften. He nods once. Permission given. Life decided. You want to run to the window to see Thomas's carriage waiting in the storm. But you stand still, hands trembling, while your mother fusses about tea sets and good china and the endless lists that will soon swallow your quiet days whole. That night, you lie awake long after the house has gone silent. You imagine his voice whispering your name, not just Miss Hartwell, but Ella Lanina, soft and certain. You touch the place on your left hand where the ring will soon sit. Outside, the rain hushes the city to sleep, and you wonder if he lies awake too, listening for the echo of your heartbeat in the storm. Morning comes with a hush that feels like holding your breath. You sit in your bedroom window, your embroidery forgotten, watching a milk cart rattle past. You half expect the world to look different, as if the street outside should know that last night changed everything. In the study, your father stands with his back to the fireplace, one hand gripping the mantel as if it steadies him. You catch the faint smell of pipe tobacco. He only smokes when he's anxious. You sit on the edge of the armchair, your hands folded so tightly in your lap that your knuckles ache. Ella Lanina, he says, his voice softer than you expected. I have given my consent. I believe Mr. Weatherb's intentions are sincere, and his prospects, while not extravagant, are respectable. He looks at you then, really looks. You see the lines at the corners of his eyes, the worry etched there by years of counting coins and calculating the cost of your future. You know this is for life, he says. A husband is not just company, he is shelter. And sometimes he is a storm. You nod, your throat tight. He steps forward, resting one heavy, work-worn hand on your shoulder. It's the closest thing he can offer to an embrace. May he be more shelter than storm, he says, so quietly you almost miss it. Your mother's excitement is a force of nature. The moment the words engaged in proposal are spoken aloud, she becomes a whirl of pinned lists and rustling fabric samples. She paces the parlor, gesturing at curtains that must be washed, carpets that must be beaten, and china that must come down from the cabinet after gathering polite dust for a decade. We'll need new gloves for you, of course, and calling cards printed, and your trousseau will be the envy of every young lady in Kensington. She says this half to you, half to herself. You stand in the middle of it all, the hurricane of lavender sachets and good linens and your mother's bright eyes, and you try to catch your breath. In the mirror above the mantel, you glimpse yourself. Bonnet slightly askew, hair escaping its pins, cheeks flushed from the swirl of it all. You look for a moment like a ghost of the child you were, the girl who played in this same room with the dollhouse and lace scraps. Now, the dollhouse is packed away, and the lace will trim your wedding gown. Your mother stops, suddenly gentle. She cups your face in her gloved hands. I just want you settled well, my love. Well and safe. Her voice trembles on that last word, safe. In this world, safety is a husband's promise, written in the hush between the vows you haven't yet spoken. The rain stops long enough for Thomas to call again, this time unchaperoned but not quite free. The street outside is a maze of puddles reflecting the pale afternoon sky. Thomas stands at the gate, hat in hand, hair still damp where the drizzle caught him. You take his arm and step onto the path that loops through the small park behind your house. Your mother's lace curtains twitch in the front window. You know she's watching, counting the minutes, but for now you're alone enough. The leaves drip quietly around you, the hush of a world washed clean. Thomas speaks of practical things, rent prices, the neighborhood where he hopes to find a house, the small garden he dreams of filling with herbs and roses. His voice is careful, as if he's laying bricks for your future with every word. You listen, nodding, your gloved hand tucked into the crook of his elbow. But under it all, you're watching the tiny beads of rain still clinging to his hair. The way he glances at you when he thinks you won't notice. The faint tremble in his voice when he says, I hope you'll find it comfortable. You want to say, I don't care where it is, as long as you're there. But you only smile, pressing his arm a little closer to your side. When the first letter arrives, you nearly drop your embroidery scissors in surprise. Mary brings it in on a small silver tray, as if it were a jewel rather than a folded bit of paper. Your mother pretends not to watch you open it, though her eyes flick toward the envelope every few seconds. My dearest Alalinina, it begins. His handwriting is neat, but you can see where the nib caught on certain words, where he paused too long or pressed too hard. He writes about the morning mist on his walk to work, the smell of ink in the counting house, the sweet shop he passed that reminded him of you. And at the end, a single line that makes your cheeks warm. I count the hours until I can see you again. You hide the letter beneath your sewing basket, tucked among stray buttons and spools of thread like it's a secret treasure chest. That night, you write back by lamplight, careful to keep your script small and tidy. You tell him of the robins outside your window, the color you've chosen for the trim of your wedding gown, the way your mother hums when she thinks no one can hear her planning your future. And you end it with a hush wish. May this find you well and thinking of me as I think of you. The house sleeps around you while you lie awake, Thomas's letter tucked beneath your pillow like a promise. You imagine him in his rented room across town, perhaps staring at the ceiling beams, tracing the ghost of your gloved hand on his sleeve. The grandfather clock downstairs chimes once, twice, 3 times. The hush hours when the world feels softer, when secrets bloom like night-blooming flowers. You press your hand to your chest, feeling your heartbeat flutter under the corset's tight embrace. Outside, the rain has stopped, but the air hums with a hushed thunder you can't hear, the storm of change waiting at the edge of your safe girlhood. You close your eyes, a scent of lavender water and ink clinging to your hair, and you whisper your answer to the shadows. Yes. Your mother insists you must have at least one new gown made before the engagement announcement appears in the Sunday paper. You find yourself standing stiffly on a low platform in Madame Fairley's dress shop while pins prick at your sides and soft silks swish like whispered secrets. The mirror before you is taller than you are, the glass slightly clouded at the edges, so you appear to hover inside it, a ghost of a bride-to-be, half real, half imagined. Madame's fingers are deft, tucking a pale violet ribbon just so, smoothing the folds of gray silk over your hips. Stand tall, your mother says, voice crisp, shoulders back. A husband must see his wife carries herself with dignity. In the glass, you watch yourself obey, chin lifted, spine straight. But inside, your thoughts flutter like startled sparrows. The silk is beautiful, yes, but it is also a kind of armor, a promise, a cage that feels sweet at first, until you remember you can never truly slip it off. You wonder, as Madame works, what Thomas will think when he sees you in it, whether he'll see the careful seams, the stays that hold you together, whether he'll notice the girl inside the dress at all. After the fittings, you and your mother stop at a small tea room tucked away behind the haberdashers. It's the sort of place where women sit with gloves off but hats firmly pinned, voices low so the dark paneled walls don't overhear. Your mother stirs her tea so vigorously that the porcelain spoon rattles. She talks about the guest list, who must be invited, who must not, about the silver candlesticks she will lend you for your new house, about the small inheritance that will be your dowry, enough to furnish the rooms, if you're prudent. You nod, cupping your tea in both hands. But your thoughts drift to Thomas, where he is now, whether he's pacing the counting house, running figures with ink-stained fingers, or standing by the window, watching rain slip down the glass. Your mother's voice drops, soft but certain. Marriage is a fortress, Elena, built strong enough to keep the worst of the world out, if you do your part. You think of your father's words. May he be more shelter than storm. When you look at your mother, you see both fortress and storm. And you realize, with a start, that one day someone may look at you and see the same. That evening, in the hush before bedtime, you find another letter waiting on your dresser. This one tucked inside the worn leather cover of your family Bible, slipped there by Mary with a conspiratorial wink. Thomas's writing is more confident this time, the loops and curls of his letters like ivy climbing up the margins. He tells you about the little house he's found in Kensington, how the garden gate squeaks, how the roof will need patching before the winter storms come. He writes about ordinary things, the sound of the lamplighter on the street, the taste of lukewarm tea at his boarding house, the dream he had where you stood in the rain and called his name. His words are plain, but you read them again and again until they feel like silk under your fingertips. You hide the letter back in the Bible, between the pages of Psalms, a secret prayer wrapped in Thomas's careful script. When you close your eyes that night, you dream not of roses or rings, but of a tiny garden gate swinging open to a life that almost feels like yours already. It's just after supper when Thomas calls again. This time, your father nods once and retreats to his study, your mother to her mending basket, leaving you in the front parlor with the door half open, just enough for propriety to slip through. Thomas's voice is soft, but his eyes never waver. There are things you should know, Ilelanine. Things no one will say aloud at the church. You brace yourself, the hush crackling like a wick. He tells you of Bombay, of fevers and sleepless nights, of the sounds that still make him flinch in crowded streets. He says, I'm not whole. Not in the way you deserve. You reach for his gloved hand. Only this time, you pull the glove away. Skin touches skin, warm and a little rough, and your pulse thunders in your ears. I don't need you whole, you whisper. I only need you here. Outside, the gaslights flicker on in the street. In this tiny circle of candlelight, you begin to see not just the man you've been promised, but the one you will choose, again and again, long after the vows are spoken. By Sunday afternoon, you walk with him again, unchaperoned for the first time. The path through the park is half muddy from last night's rain, but you don't care. You carry your gloves in your free hand, the other tucked into the crook of his arm. Birdsong weaves through the bare branches, a hush music you try to memorize. He talks of practical matters, when he'll move his things to the new house, what you'll plant in the small back garden, whether you'd like roses or herbs. But underneath the sensible words is a promise unspoken, but felt in every step. You pause at the edge of the duck pond, the water gray and still. He turns to you, brushing a stray hair from your face. The world holds its breath. There, in that hush moment, you feel it, the future folding itself around you like a quilt, warm, fragile, entirely yours. You find yourself stitching more than ever these days, not because you love embroidery, but because it gives your restless hands something to do while your mind spins with the future. You sit by the parlor window, the bright winter light catching on the needle as you draw it through linen. Mary, the maid, lingers near you, pretending to dust the mantle. She's the only soul in the house you trust with your nervous laughter, your whispered worries about whether Thomas will like the curtains you plan to hem yourself. You're to be a fine lady soon, miss, she says, watching your fingers knot the thread. It'll suit you, all this silk and silver and tea for callers. Her eyes crinkle kindly. Just don't forget how to laugh with us plain folk. You smile, pricking your finger on the needle in your distraction. A single drop of red blooms on the white linen, a reminder that this future you're stitching is made by your own two hands, but it can draw blood too. Outside, snow begins to drift from a leaden sky. Each flake melts against the glass, vanishing before it can leave a mark. Thomas waits for you by the garden gate when the day is nearly done. He doffs his hat, cheeks flushed from the cold, his eyes holding that flicker of something unspoken, the thing neither of you dare say yet. You step out with him, your shawl wrapped tightly against the winter air. The street lamps sputter to life, one by one, throwing soft circles of gaslight that guide your footsteps. You walk slower than you should, your arm looped through his, your gloved hand warm against the wool of his coat. Every few houses, you pass the shadows of other couples, some proper, some hidden in doorways where no chaperone can see. You feel your mother's warning in your bones. A good reputation once lost is never regained. But beside Thomas, you feel as if the world might forgive you anything. When you reach the edge of the park, you pause beneath an ancient tree, its bare branches trembling in the hushed dusk. He takes your hand, not your glove, your hand, and presses it to his lips. The brush of warmth, the smell of winter on his coat, these are things you will memorize, even when you're 70 and the tree is gone. Neither of you says a word. The lamp above you hisses softly, its yellow glow a tiny promise against the falling dark. Sunday comes, and with it, the reading of the banns. You stand beside your mother in the pew, your gloved hands folded tightly in front of you, while the curate's voice drifts up into the vaulted stone arches. Thomas Wetherb of this parish, bachelor. Ella Hartwell of this parish, spinster. The words echo like a hush bell toll, 3 Sundays in a row, they will ring out, giving anyone the chance to object. It feels impossibly public, your private promise laid bare for the entire congregation to hear. You glance sideways at Thomas, seated with his own family 2 pews away. He doesn't look at you directly, but his thumb taps softly against the worn hymn book. A tiny sign that he knows you're watching him, that he feels the same hush thunder you do. Afterward, there are polite congratulations from people you've known since childhood, neighbors who remember you with scraped knees and hair ribbons, who now bow and murmur about a fine match. You smile and curtsy, your cheeks aching from all this smiling, your future suddenly so real you could reach out and touch it. Outside, the churchyard is dappled with weak winter sun. You walk home arm in arm with your parents, the hush wind nipping at your bonnet ties. Somewhere behind you, Thomas's footsteps keep time with your heartbeat. The rain finds you both again, a cold drizzle that sends most people rushing inside. But you and Thomas linger beneath the skeletal branches of the sycamore near your back gate. He holds your gloved hands in both of his thumbs tracing soft circles over the damp kid leather. You should pull away. Any neighbor could be peeking through lace curtains. But you don't. Instead, you lean closer, your forehead brushing his shoulder. You feel him breathe, feel the hushed tremor of a word he doesn't say. Then so gently you wonder if you imagined it, he lifts your chin and presses his lips to yours. It's a kiss more promise than passion. No scandal in it, just the soft thunder of everything about to be yours. The rain slips down the collar of your cloak, cold as truth, warm as hope. When you pull back, you're both half laughing, half terrified. The church bells in the distance toll vespers, reminding you that tomorrow you're still unmarried. But tonight, beneath the hushed drizzle, you are each other's secret. A week before the wedding, Thomas places something small and cold in your gloved palm. It's a simple brass key, its bow worn smooth. "It's yours," he says, voice so soft you almost miss it over the clatter of a passing cart, "to your new house." Our house. You trace its shape through the thin leather of your glove, feeling the weight of it, not heavy, but enough to anchor you. In this tiny key is a door you'll open, a room you'll step into as someone's wife. A whole new life that hinges on a single turn. "Does it squeak?" you ask, remembering his letter. He smiles, the hushed smile that lives just for you. "Terribly," he says. "But I thought we'd leave it that way, so you'll always hear me coming home." You tuck the key into your reticule, the brass warm now from your touch. You walk away down the quiet lane, the hushed dusk folding around you like a veil. In your pocket, the promise clicks softly with each step. It arrives on a Tuesday, wrapped in brown paper tied with coarse twine. Your wedding bonnet, ordered weeks ago from Miss Harlowe's millinery shop on Fleet Street. You wait until you're alone to untie the string, heart hammering as though you're unwrapping a secret too precious for daylight. The bonnet itself is simple, not the towering confections fashionable in the highest circles, but elegant. White silk lined with palest blush satin, delicate sprays of wax flowers nestled along the brim. You lift it from its nest of tissue, turn it slowly in your hands, and feel the hush weight of your new name settling on your shoulders. In the mirror, you balance it atop your pinned curls. For a moment, you can almost see the church aisle ahead, the gaslight flickering through stained glass, Thomas's eyes searching yours from the far end. Your reflection looks back, older and softer at once. The bonnet makes you someone's wife already, in the half-lit hush of your bedroom. You think of all the times you played at weddings as a girl, a daisy chain your only crown. How strange and beautiful it is to grow into the vows you once made to dolls. Your Aunt Margaret comes to call one last time before the wedding. She asks you to walk with her in the small back garden, where the frost clings to the bare rose, bushes, and your breath curls like lace in the cold air. She doesn't mince words, your aunt. She never has. Ella, love is a beautiful thing. But you must also like your husband. Admire him, yes, but like him too, the way you'd like a dear friend. You nod, boots crunching on the gravel path. You think of Thomas's soft laugh when you tell a bad joke, how he brings you sweets wrapped in paper when you're nervous, how he keeps your secrets without asking why. He will disappoint you at times, Aunt Margaret says, pausing by the empty birdbath. So will you him. That's not failure, child. That's life. She squeezes your gloved hand, her eyes bright in the hushed winter sunlight. Keep a corner of your heart for yourself. And when you quarrel, because you will, quarrel with kindness. You want to ask her more about what happens on that first hush night, about fears you don't know how to name. But her eyes soften, and you know she sees your unspoken questions. She simply tucks your arm through hers and walks you back to the house. You sit by the bedroom window that night, the wedding bonnet resting in its box nearby, the Bible open at your side. One last letter to Thomas, the last you'll send as Ella Hartwell, spinster. Your pen scratches across the page, each word a hushed confession you can't yet say aloud. How your pulse stutters when you imagine your wedding night. How you hope your hands won't shake when you button his collar in the morning. How you pray the small house in Kensington will feel like a true home and not just a pretty cage. You write about the garden gate, the squeak you hope never to oil, about the dream of sitting by the fire with your children, the thought so bold it makes you blush in the quiet. You sign your name carefully, your fingers trembling at the final loop. When you melt the sealing wax, you watch the red drip onto the paper, forming a soft seal, a promise, a hush vow that once you give, you can never take back. In the hush dark, you tuck the letter into its envelope. Tomorrow, you'll be his, and he, yours. Your childhood bedroom is half empty now. The trunk at the foot of your bed stands open, your trousseau neatly folded inside, linen chemises, petticoats edged with careful lace, the new nightdress you can barely bring yourself to look at. Mary helps you smooth the final garments into place, her eyes bright with unspoken words. You'll be happy, miss, she says softly, tying a neat bow on the trunk strap. He's a good man. Not perfect, but good. You nod, unable to speak. You glance at the window, the view you've stared at your entire life. The neighbor's rooftop, the gaslight at the corner that flickers no matter the weather. Tomorrow night, you'll sleep in a different bed, in a different house, with a man's breath steady beside yours. Your mother comes in, her slippers whispering over the rug. She stands by your trunk, her hand smoothing an invisible wrinkle. For a moment, you see the hushed sadness in her eyes, the ache of letting you go, the ghost of the girl she once was. She kisses your forehead and leaves without a word. That night, you curl beneath your childhood quilt one last time. Your fingers brush the bonnet box at the bedside. Somewhere in the hushed dark, you whisper your old name like a blessing. And then you close your eyes, listening to the new life breathing at the edge of your dreams. Dawn comes wrapped in a hush frost. You wake before the rest of the house stirs, slipping your feet into slippers you'll never wear here again. Mary braids your hair, her fingers gentle, her own eyes red-rimmed. Your mother fastens the tiny buttons down your back, each click like a clock, ticking away the last moments of your old life. You stand very still, bonnet ribbons trembling under your chin. The carriage waits in the street, the horse's breath ghosting in the hushed morning air. Neighbors gather by their windows to watch. It's not every day they see a bride leave the house she was born in. Your father's arm feels solid, warm. He pats your gloved hand once, the way he did when you were little, and thunderstorms kept you awake. He'll take care of you, Ella, he says, voice thick. But don't forget, you're strong enough to take care of yourself too. The church bells begin to peal, not loud, but clear, like a lullaby that lifts the hush fog from your mind. You step into the carriage. You are not just a girl anymore, or a bride. You are the keeper of your own quiet kingdom. And the gates swing open with every heartbeat that says yes. You arrive at the small stone church just as the pale sun breaks through the lingering winter mist. The gas lamps inside burn low, throwing soft halos across the pews as guests lean in to see the bride they've known since she was just Miss Hartwell, running in muddy boots across the green. Your father's arm is a solid anchor, but your heartbeat flutters like lace against your ribs. Your bonnet feels too tight, your gloves too warm. Then, as the heavy oak door swings open, the hush settles over you, a quiet so deep you think you might drown in it. Thomas stands at the front, his best coat pressed smooth, his eyes finding yours before you even clear the threshold. He smiles, the kind of hush smile that says we're here now, no more letters, no more gates to pass through alone. The organist strikes the first notes, the chords echoing in the ancient rafters. Your slippers whisper on the aisle runner, each step a promise stitched to every girlhood dream you've ever whispered to the night. The hush fills every stone crevice as you and Thomas turn to face each other. Your hands tremble in his, the kid leather warm and slightly damp. The vicar's voice sounds far away, like water running over smooth stones. To love, honor, and cherish. For richer, for poorer. In sickness and in health. You watch Thomas's lips shape each word, the corners of his mouth trembling with relief and wonder. You catch the faint sheen in his eyes, the hushed shadow of all the roads he took to find his way back to this moment. When it's your turn, your voice doesn't crack the way you feared it would. You feel each word leave your mouth and take root in the hushed space between you. Your bonnet ribbon tickles your neck as you bow your head, hearing only the quiet roar of your heartbeat and the faint murmur of your mother's weeping somewhere behind you. When the vicar bids him kiss the bride, Thomas lifts your veil with shaking hands. His lips brush yours, a kiss gentle enough to keep the hush whole. For a breathless moment, the flickering candlelight makes you both shimmer, like the glass windows high above that catch the new sun. When you step back into the daylight, the air feels sharper, brighter, as if your lungs can finally hold the future you've just spoken into existence. Petals scatter from small baskets carried by the neighborhood children, rose petals your mother spent all of last evening snipping from their stems. They stick to your slippers, your hem, your bonnet's trailing ribbons. Thomas's hand never leaves yours, his thumb rubbing soft circles over your knuckles as the neighbors cheer, some too shy to make much noise. Your father dabs at his eyes. Your mother holds your arm tight for a final moment before letting you step into the waiting carriage. The wheels clatter softly over the pedals as you pull away. Through the rear window, you glimpse your old street, the flickering gas lamp, the familiar hedge, the front gate that squeaked you secrets every night. You lean your head against Thomas's shoulder, your hand tucked beneath his coat, where it's warm and hush and hidden from the world. The Kensington house greets you with its hush creak as Thomas pushes open the door. The brass key is warm from his palm, its bow glinting like a promise in the low afternoon light. You stand on the worn step, bonnet askew, gloved hand braced on the doorframe as you take in the narrow hallway, the small but bright sitting room, the tiny garden peeking through the back window. "It's ours," Thomas says, voice breaking on the hush syllables. He lifts you over the threshold, because you both read that you should, laughing at the awkwardness, the way your boots catch on the door jamb, the way your bonnet nearly tumbles off your pinned curls. Inside, the air smells faintly of fresh paint and coal smoke, the hush scent of home to be. You set your trunk down in the bedroom that will be yours now, every pillowcase and candle holder a secret you'll learn together. Later that week, you claim the little desk by the parlor window as your own. It's battered oak, secondhand, but it suits you. Its drawers shallow, but deep enough for all the hushed treasures you begin to gather. Inside the top drawer, You place your mother's lace handkerchief, the one she pressed into your palm as you stepped into the carriage. Beside it, your journal, its leather spine now softened by your daily hush thoughts. You tuck the letters Thomas wrote you during your engagement into a bundle tied with blue ribbon. One corner of the drawer holds a pressed violet, stolen from your neighbor's garden the morning you first saw the house. It feels strange, thrilling even, to have a small world that is yours alone in this shared life. You think about your aunt's advice. Keep a corner of your heart for yourself. Here it is, a tiny sanctuary of folded paper and faint perfume. Stories you won't tell anyone but the hush pages. Sometimes Thomas finds you sitting at the desk, pen tapping your lower lip, eyes lost in the hush world you're writing down. He doesn't ask. He just smiles, kisses the top of your head, and lets your secrets be. It doesn't take long for your landlady, Mrs. Anstruther, to pay her first call. She appears on your doorstep one drizzly Wednesday, cheeks pink from the cold, hat bristling with small silk violets. She brings a gift, a jar of pickled walnuts and a hushed torrent of opinions. Thomas leaves you to it, retreating to his tiny study at the back of the house. You pour tea in the front parlor, careful not to chip the good china your mother gave you. Mrs. Anstruther talks about everything. The butcher's poor cuts, the scandal of the grocer's daughter marrying above herself, the dreadful new family moving in 2 doors down. You smile and nod, hands folded in your lap. She appraises you over the rim of her teacup, your bonnet now replaced by a simple house cap, your hands still ringed with the promise of new vows. You've made a pretty home here, she says at last, softer than her sharp tongue would suggest. But mind you keep it neat. A man doesn't stay in a house that feels cold. You want to tell her about your hush drawer, the violets pressed between your journal pages, the warmth you find in small secrets. But instead, you refill her teacup and promise you'll mind the hearth. That night, Thomas finds you kneeling by the hearth, coaxing the coals to life. The logs are stubborn. The flue smokes a bit when the wind shifts, but you're determined. He laughs softly, kneels beside you, his sleeve brushing yours as he shows you how to arrange the kindling. You both sit there, your faces lit by the hush flicker of new flame. The warmth seeps into your stockings, the pop and crackle of the fire the only sound for a long while. "This is ours," he says again, the same words he spoke when he carried you over the threshold. You lean your head against his shoulder, the hush weight of the day falling away. You think of all the fires you'll tend together, the warmth you'll guard through every storm. Long after he's drifted to sleep, you stay by the hearth, a blanket wrapped around your shoulders. In the hush glow, you write another line in your journal. A home is made of secrets, but a marriage is made of warmth. You're alone in the house when the first big storm comes. It starts as a hush drizzle at dawn, but by afternoon, the wind howls down the narrow street, rattling the sash windows and tugging at the lace curtains. The coal fire pops and sputters, throwing shadows across the parlor walls. You perch by the window seat, a folded blanket in your lap. You run your finger along the fogged glass, tracing the curve of the street lamp flickering in the rain. There's a hush thrill in knowing this little house is yours to keep warm, yours to guard from the cold world outside. When Thomas returns, coat soaked through, hair slicked to his forehead, he finds you waiting with dry towels and hot tea. He presses a wet kiss to your forehead and laughs when you squeal at the chill. This, you think, this hush routine of small warmths is what marriage truly is. 2 weeks later, a letter arrives bearing an unfamiliar seal, thick cream paper, corners slightly bruised from its long journey. You hold it over the parlor lamp, the hush warmth of the flame brushing your knuckles. Thomas stands behind you, his hand on your shoulder. "It's from Mr. Ellis," he says, recognizing the cramped script. A man he once worked with in Bombay, before the fevers, before the long journey home that brought him to you. You break the seal carefully. Inside are 4 pages of news. Business troubles, whispers of uprisings, the hushed secrets of trade that made Thomas restless and cautious all at once. When you finish reading, you fold the letter back along its creases and slip it into your writing desk drawer, your private corner that holds all the small threads of your joined life. That night, Thomas sits by the hearth, staring into the embers long after you've banked the fire for sleep. You slip your hand into his, pressing your palm to his hush heartbeat. He doesn't speak of the past, but in the hush warmth you feel the things he cannot yet say. Your mother's lessons echo in your mind as you bend over the kitchen table, pencil in hand, ledgers open. A good housekeeper knows every penny spent. You keep a neat column for the butcher, another for the greengrocer, a third for the coal man who sometimes shortchanges the measure when he thinks you won't notice. Thomas joins you, coat off, sleeves rolled. He watches you work the figures, then shows you his own scrawled notes from the office. You laugh at how his numbers look like frightened beetles crawling across the page. He promises to teach you more about ledgers. You promise to show him how to fold linen sheets so they don't crease at the corners. The hush moment feels like an entire world. 2 people learning to weave a life, their heads bent over sums and scraps of paper, the rain tapping gently at the window like a lullaby. As September wanes, you coax the little garden into life. It's not much, a patch of earth behind the kitchen door, no bigger than your mother's parlor rug. But you scatter seeds the way your father taught you, pressing your palms into the hush-damp soil. Thomas helps when he can, though he protests he has no talent for growing things. He watches you kneeling in the dirt, skirts bunched, hair escaping your pins, and laughs at your muddy fingers. A fine lady indeed, he teases. But when the first green shoots appear, he beams with genuine pride, as if your bit of green hope is a triumph against the coal smoke and iron railings of London. In the evenings, you both stand at the back door, steaming mugs in hand, the hushed dusk folding over the garden like a warm blanket. You imagine the vegetables that will feed your table next spring, the flowers that will fill jam jars on the mantel. You hold these small, growing dreams close, the hush seeds of something tender you're building together. You've just finished laying the last fork when the knock comes. It's nearly dusk, too late for deliveries, too early for Thomas's return from the office. You open the door to find a man in a travel-worn coat, hat in hand, a grin peeking through a weathered beard. "Mrs. Wetherb?" he asks. His voice is rough but kind. Name's Samuel Turner, old friend of Thomas's from the Bombay days. You stand blinking in the hall as rain drips from the brim of his hat onto your clean entry rug. Thomas appears behind you. He must have turned the corner at just the right moment, and his face lights up with a hush warmth you rarely see. The 2 men clap each other on the back, laughter filling the small house like a long-forgotten song. You rush to set an extra place at the table, to add another potato to the stew bubbling on the stove. As the men talk, you catch half-phrases about ports and ship manifests, about that time in Calcutta when Thomas nearly lost a contract, tales of a world you only glimpse through him. Samuel's eyes crinkle with fondness when he looks at you, as if he's seeing the best thing his friend ever brought home. When you finally sit to eat, you find yourself listening more than speaking. There's comfort in the way the men's voices weave together, the hush hum of shared history, the gentle promise that you are part of it now. It happens over the simplest thing, a parcel you forgot to send, a note you mislaid on the mantel. Thomas's tone sharpens, not cruel, but edged by a day's work and too little sleep. You bristle, words prickling under your tongue. For a heartbeat, you think, so this is what they meant when they warned me. The hush warmth of the hearth suddenly feels fragile. You stand there, arms crossed, staring at the banked embers. Thomas rubs his brow, pacing once across the parlor rug. "I shouldn't have raised my voice," he says finally. His apology is quick but real, like a splinter pulled clean. You nod. You are learning to hold your own ground, to remember that love is not the absence of friction, but the hushed willingness to smooth the edges together. You both laugh a little when you realize how small the quarrel was. He pulls you close until your cheek rests on his shoulder, and the hushed tension melts into the rhythm of his breathing. Tomorrow, you think as you drift off to sleep later, you will send the parcel first thing. One hush evening, you find yourself climbing the narrow attic steps, a little lantern swinging from your hand. You're looking for old curtains, a spare blanket, some hidden thing your mother-in-law once left behind. The attic smells of dry wood and old mothballs, the hushed shadows shifting like soft ghosts. There, beneath a stack of battered trunks, you find a small cedar box you don't recognize. Inside are letters tied with faded blue ribbon. Thomas's letters from his early years abroad. You perch on an old trunk, lantern at your feet, fingers brushing each paper like a prayer. You read one line at a time. His cramped script, his youthful hopes, the hushed fear he never spoke aloud. You feel the distance he traveled to come back to you. Every inked word a bridge. When you hear his step on the stairs, you tuck the letters back in place. Some hushed secrets are meant to stay in the dark, to be cherished, not spoken of. He finds you there, lantern glow catching your hair like spun gold, and he doesn't ask what you found. He simply takes your free hand, warm and steady, and you both descend to the warmth below. At the end of that hush week, you and Thomas sit curled on the settee, a single lamp burning low. Your head rests on his shoulder, your hand tucked into his coat. Outside, the world drips with autumn mist, but inside, the hush warmth hums through your bones. He tells you he's thinking of expanding the company's reach, new routes, new clients. He asks your opinion, your honest thoughts. You surprise yourself with how much you know now, about ledgers and letters, about the hushed balance of risk and hope. When you grow quiet, he tilts your chin up and whispers that none of it matters without you. You hush laugh, press your palm to his chest, feel his heart drumming out its steady vow. By the hearth, you make your own promises. Not grand, not gilded, but small, daily vows you plan to keep. Warm bread for the coldest days, a steady hand on the darkest nights, a hush home for every storm to come. Your first Christmas in the little house is nothing like the grand gatherings you remember from your girlhood home. No distant uncles with booming laughs, no cousins scattering sugared almonds on the rug. Instead, it's hush small. You and Thomas, a single goose roasting in the oven, and a holly sprig tied above the parlor mantel. You spend Christmas Eve by candlelight, cutting paper stars and stringing them over the hearth. Thomas watches you from the armchair, his eyes reflecting the flicker of the flames. When he rises to help you reach the highest corner, his fingers brush your waist, and you nearly drop the paper garland. The hushed closeness feels like a secret blessing, a gift wrapped in the warmth of his arms. On Christmas morning, you exchange small, thoughtful tokens. He gives you a new set of hairpins, the kind you'd once admired in the window of a shop on High Street, delicate silver with tiny etched flowers. You present him with a sturdy leather wallet, inside which you've tucked a note, for all the journeys you'll come home from. Outside, the street is still. Snow muffles the clip of carriage wheels, and the distant church bells ring like a lullaby. In this hushed pocket of winter, you find a new definition of family, one that fits in the curve of your husband's arm and the steam of your morning tea. A week after Christmas, the post brings a letter from your sister, its edges slightly smudged with coal dust from the train that carried it. You curl up in the window nook to read her careful script, lines of news about your parents' health, the new milliner's shop in town, the hush rumor that your cousin might marry a gentleman from Bath. But beneath the chatty sentences lies a softer wish. She wonders when she might visit you, if your small London house has a corner for a sister to lay her head for a few nights. The idea tugs at your heart like a child pulling your sleeve. You picture her here, helping you hang new curtains, whispering secrets by lamplight as you once did beneath the covers. When Thomas sees your faraway look, he touches your cheek. "Tell her yes," he says simply. "There will always be a place for family under our roof." You run your fingers over the closing line. "I can't wait to see your new life." You fold the letter neatly and slip it into your desk, adding it to the growing Hush archive of all the small bridges that tie your old world to your new. By late January, you've had enough of cold ash mornings and early dark nights. You sit at the kitchen table with a scrap of paper and your ledger, making Hush lists of seeds you'll need once the frost gives up its hold. Carrots, peas, maybe a few rose bushes for the fence. Thomas pretends to grumble about the cost, but when you press your pencil to the page, he's there beside you, tracing a neat border for the beds you plan to dig. Together, you sketch out your spring hopes on a piece of butcher paper. Your handwriting curls alongside his blocky notes. Lettuce here, beans there. Your laughter fills the Hush kitchen as you debate whether lavender belongs near the vegetables or by the back steps to brush your skirts with perfume each morning. Later, you tuck the folded plan into your journal, a Hush seed of your future waiting to bloom under kinder skies. It's your first invitation to tea on the street, a Hush little parlor visit with Mrs. Willoughby next door. You fret for a full morning about your dress, your gloves, the way your hair will hold up under her keen eyes. When you finally knock on her bright blue door, your heart flutters like a caged bird. Inside, her parlor is warm and just a bit too fragrant, overboiled tea leaves and rosewater soap. She talks in Hush loops about everyone on the street. The young widow who leaves candles burning all night, the butcher's wife who tips the delivery boy too well. You listen with polite interest, your mind wandering now and then to your own hearth, waiting across the garden wall. When you return home, Thomas takes one look at your weary smile and pours you fresh tea at your own table, plain, strong, familiar. You sip it in silence, a Hush warmth of your own space wrapping around you like a well-loved shawl. You hear the carriage wheels first, the Hush clatter on wet cobblestones just after dawn. You peek through the parlor curtains, pressing your fingertips to the cold glass, and there she is, your sister, bundled in her best traveling cloak, a battered portmanteau in hand. You rush to the door before Thomas can finish buttoning his waistcoat. When you fling it open, she's half laughing, half crying, her hair mussed from the overnight train. You hug in the narrow entryway, the smell of her familiar perfume washing you in memories of shared beds and whispered secrets by candlelight. Thomas appears behind you, offering to take her bag with a soft, polite smile. In the Hush kitchen, you brew tea as she talks in a rush. The journey, the news from home, the gossip she saved just for you. The house feels different with her laughter bouncing off the walls. That night, you push 2 chairs together in your little sitting room and sit knee to knee, remembering every small scandal from the past year. Your voice is so soft you feel you might wake the entire street. When you finally lie down to sleep, you hear her breathing in the next room and think, this is the Hush sweetness of family, the blessing that follows you wherever you build your hearth. One night, after supper, you and your sister sit by the hearth while Thomas reads in the corner. A Hush bowl of sugared almonds sits forgotten between you, the fire snapping softly as shadows dance across your skirts. She asks you, in a half-whisper, what marriage is really like, the Hush bits no mother ever explains. You blush, the warmth of the flames matching the heat in your cheeks. Carefully, you tell her about small kindnesses, gentle touches in the night, the Hush ways you and Thomas learn each other's moods by the shape of a sigh. In return, she tells you of the young man back home, how he walked her home twice from the milliner's, how his eyes lingered on her hands when she unbuttoned her gloves. Your Hush laughter knots the two of you together like a quilt stitched from the secrets only sisters can share. Later, When she's gone to bed, Thomas kneels beside your chair, one arm draped across her lap. "I hope she finds what we have," he murmurs, pressing his forehead to your palm. The hush firelight flickers across his tired eyes, and you feel your heart expand in the hush warmth of that small, perfect moment. Your sister stays for 10 days, and on the final evening, the three of you walk together through a hush drizzle. The gas lamps smear light across slick cobblestones, and your boots leave damp prints that fade behind you. Thomas offers his arm to each of you in turn, his umbrella barely wide enough to shield your feathered hats from the mist. You pass quiet houses with drawn curtains, catching glimpses of other families in their glow. A woman brushing a child's hair, an old man nodding by the fire. Every window is a hush story, and tonight they all feel tenderly yours. At the corner, your sister clasps your hand in her gloved one. "Promise you'll write every week," she says, her voice muffled by the hush rain. You squeeze her fingers, nodding as Thomas gently pulls you closer to his side. When you return home, soaked and half shivering, you brew tea and sit together at the kitchen table, the hush patter of rain on the roof like a lullaby. Family, you think, is the hush blessing that softens every lonely edge of life. The next morning, her carriage pulls away, wheels clacking down the street, the hush sound echoing through the parlor long after she's gone. You sit at your writing desk, the blank sheet waiting for your first letter back. Thomas watches you sharpen your quill, a small smile hidden behind his cup of tea. "She'll write you more often than you can keep up," he says fondly, tapping the rim of his cup. But you relish the thought. In a world where travel is slow and visits rare, letters are your hush bridge. You write the first one before the ink is dry on her train ticket, describing the tulip bulbs you've ordered, the new neighbor you met at the grocer's, the way Thomas murmured your name when he thought you were asleep. You seal it with blue wax, pressing your signet gently into the hush swirl. Somewhere down the line, this tiny piece of you will slip through her fingers, reminding her that your hearth is always warm for her return. By late February, the hush cold seeps into your bones no matter how high you bank the fire. The cold delivery is late, the wind slips through the parlor window panes, and you find yourself shivering in the hallway when you fetch your letters from the basket. One morning, Thomas finds you standing by the drafty window, your shoulders drawn tight in your shawl. He crosses the room with a hush purpose, folds you into his arms, and you feel his warmth soak into your icy fingers. "You'll catch your death if you linger here," he murmurs, pressing a kiss to your temple. You both know he's half serious. Illness is no small worry in this age. Every cold carries the ghost of something worse. So you move the armchair closer to the hearth, drape your blanket over your knees, and spend the hush afternoon with your embroidery while Thomas mends a loose shutter. In this small act, the hush comfort of firelight, the closeness of his steady presence, you find your safest refuge from winter's creeping fingers. But your precautions can only do so much. By early March, you wake with a hush ache behind your eyes and a tightness in your chest that makes your breath rasp like worn silk. Thomas tries to hide his worry, but you see it in the crease of his brow as he pours you warm broth and presses his hand to your forehead. For 2 days, the fever has you drifting in and out of dreams. Snatches of the old house, your sister's laughter, your mother's lullabies. Each time you open your eyes, Thomas is there, perched beside the bed with a basin of cool water, gently smoothing the damp hair from your brow. On the 3rd day, the fever breaks like a hush wave. You wake to find him dozing at your bedside, his coat rumpled, his hair untidy. Your fingers brush his hand, and he startles awake, eyes bright with relief. "Rest now," he murmurs, kissing your palm. You realize, in that haze of hush recovery, that this small sickbed tenderness is its own vow, a promise stronger than any words spoken at the altar. When your strength returns, you find yourself restless for something meaningful to do. The vicar's wife calls on you one rainy afternoon, cheeks flushed, bonnet dripping wet. She carries a hush basket of cloth scraps and bits of bread. The widow porter's child is taken ill, she explains, voice tight with worry. We're gathering food and small comforts. You remember the widow porter, the hush way she keeps her head down when she passes your garden gate. Without hesitation, you add 2 loaves from your kitchen, a jar of pickled onions you'd been saving for Sunday's lunch, and a pair of mittens you never wore. That evening, you and Thomas walk the basket to the widow's door. She stands there, eyes wide with surprise, as you press the bundle into her hands. It's not much, you say softly, your breath curling in the hushed night air. But her grateful tears say it's more than enough. When you return home, Thomas kisses your knuckles. You've always had the kindest heart, he says, and you tuck the warmth of his praise into the hushed quarters of your soul. Your hushed kindness ripples through the neighborhood like a quiet tide. In the weeks that follow, neighbors begin to stop you on your errands. The baker slips you an extra roll. The grocer wraps her apples in clean paper. The butcher's wife shares stories of her own first years of marriage. One hushed night, curled in bed with Thomas beside you, you whisper about it, how this web of kindness weaves a stronger net than any fortune could buy. He listens, his thumb tracing soft circles on the back of your hand. It's the life we're building, he says quietly, one gentle moment at a time. You drift to sleep to the sound of his breath, steady and close, the hushed tick of the mantel clock counting your blessings. As spring edges in, the house fills with new hush sounds. One morning, you find a tiny sparrow perched on the garden gate, its feathers fluffed against the drizzle. You scatter crumbs on the windowsill, and the next day, it brings a mate. Thomas laughs when he finds you pressed to the glass, whispering to your hushed guests. You're building quite the menagerie, he teases, but he's careful not to frighten them away when he passes by. The birds stay for weeks, their small wings flitting in and out as you hang linens to dry. They feel like a hushed promise of life, of change, a reminder that your small home, your small hearth, is alive with gentle things that find warmth where you make it. By early April, your small house feels ready to welcome others in. You polish the best cutlery until it shines, lay out the lace tablecloth your mother gifted you, and place a single hush vase of early tulips in the center of the table. Your guests are Mr. and Mrs. Langdon, a kindly older couple who lent Thomas advice when you first took the house. They arrive wrapped in rain cloaks, cheeks pink from the chill evening. You take their coats, pour tea by the hearth, and listen to their stories of London before the Crystal Palace was even built. Dinner is simple but warm. Roast beef, potatoes glazed with dripping, and a sweet pudding you've practiced twice just to be certain. You watch Thomas play host, your heart catching at the hush care in his small gestures. The way he lifts Mrs. Langdon's plate, tops up Mr. Langdon's wine without fuss. When the evening ends, the Langdons stand at your door, clutching your hands in thanks. You've made this house a home, Mrs. Langdon whispers. And later, when you wash the dishes side by side with Thomas, you catch his eye and feel it too. You're not just surviving, you're welcoming life inside. As the spring sun grows braver, you spend long hush mornings kneeling in the tiny back garden. The soil is stubborn, cold and damp from winter's long grip, but under your fingertips it feels alive, a hush promise waiting to bloom. Thomas watches from the kitchen window, sometimes tapping the glass to wave. Once, he brings you a tin cup of tea, the steam curling between the leafless rose bushes. You press your muddy glove to his cheek in thanks, laughing when he pretends to scold you. By May, shoots of green appear, your first patch of radishes, the brave points of tulip leaves. When your hands ache from pulling weeds, you sit on the garden step and rest your chin on your knees, listening to the hushed chatter of sparrows nesting under the eaves. The garden isn't grand, no grand lawns or manicured hedges. But it's yours, every hush inch coaxed into life by your patient hands. a small patch of green hope in a world that often feels gray. One hush afternoon, the postman arrives with a single folded envelope, your father's hand unmistakable, each looped letter as familiar as your own name. You carry it to your writing desk, running your thumb along the seal before you break it. Inside, your father writes of home, the market bustle, the way your mother still fusses over your younger brother's boots, the hushed pride he feels when neighbors ask after you. He apologizes for not visiting yet, promises he will come when the roads dry out and the days grow longer. You read each line twice, 3 times, and slip the letter into your journal. That night, you sit by the fire and read parts aloud to Thomas, the hush weight of homesickness, softened by the gentle warmth of his hand resting on yours. When you blow out the candle, you lie awake for a moment, thinking of your father's footsteps on your childhood staircase, the hushed creak of the old door you once called home. You whisper a promise into the hushed dark. He'll always have a place by your hearth, too. July brings a hushed storm that rattles the window panes like a handful of coins. You stand at the front window, watching the clouds roll in, gray upon gray, a hushed ceiling that presses the world closer. When the first thunderclap shivers the house, Thomas appears at your side. "It's only a storm," he murmurs, but his hand slips around your waist, warm and steady. You both remember the winter fever, the hush brush with fragility that still lingers in your bones. The rain drums the roof like a hush lullaby, and the garden soaks to the roots. You light every lamp in the house, pushing the dark back into the corners. Supper is cold meat and bread by the hearth, eaten cross-legged on the rug while the wind howls at the chimney. Later, in bed, you listen to the hush rain slip into a gentle patter. Thomas's breath slows against your neck. You think, storms come and go, but your hearth, this hush center of warmth and promise, holds steady against the night. On your first wedding anniversary, Thomas surprises you with a hush gift, a single beeswax candle, hand-dipped, its wick wrapped in a silk ribbon. "A new tradition," he says shyly, placing it on the table between you. You light it after supper. The flame flickers soft and steady, casting dancing shadows on the wall. You talk about the past year, the hushed fear of your illness, the laughter over your failed jam-making, the hushed joy of watching your garden push up green from the gray earth. When the candle burns low, you press the soft pool of warm wax into your journal, sealing the memory there. It feels like a hushed promise to yourself, that no matter what storms rattle the window panes, you'll keep this small light burning in the hearth of your heart. Late one hushed September night, a knock at your door wakes you from dreams of your mother's old garden. You find Mrs. Rourke, your neighbor, clutching her shawl tight around her shoulders, eyes wide with quiet panic. "It's time," she whispers. "Could you? I need help." You dress by lamplight, the house cold around your ankles. Thomas rises too, rubbing sleep from his eyes, ready to fetch the doctor if needed. But you follow Mrs. Rourke across the hushed street alone, stepping into the warm, cramped room where a baby's cry has only just begun to fill the dark. The hours blur. Boiling water, whispered comforts, the hushed scrape of your chair on the wooden floor as you move from bed to basin to cradle. When dawn breaks, a hush pale blue through the grimy window. You find yourself cradling the tiny newborn, his skin pink and soft as a new rose petal. You feel the hush weight of longing in your belly, an ache you haven't spoken aloud yet. When you finally return home, you slip beneath the blankets beside Thomas, your hands still carrying the hushed memory of that baby's warmth. Autumn creeps into the bones of the house, coiling into corners and under door frames. You take to wearing wool stockings under your skirts, a shawl draped tight around your shoulders, even indoors. But Thomas, working late by the cold front parlor window, catches a chill that turns to something worse. One hush evening, he comes to bed shivering, his forehead warm under your palm. You light the small oil lamp and settle by his side, pressing cool claws to his brow. In his half-sleep, he murmurs snatches of memories from Bombay, words that don't always make sense, fragments of heat and distant thunder that you can't hush away. The hush worry presses on your ribs like a stone, but you stay awake through the night, the mantle clock ticking slow and patient. In the dawn hush, his fever breaks. His eyes open, clearer than they've been in days, and he finds your hand where it rests on his heart. "You'll always bring me back," he whispers. You don't say it aloud, but you know, this small hearth you've made is the tether that holds you both. When Thomas recovers enough to venture out again, your hush life returns to its gentle rhythm. One bright October morning, you carry a small loaf of warm bread across the lane to Widow Porter. She opens the door with a grin, her new baby fussing on her hip. Inside, the hush parlor is crowded with women. Neighbors come to offer help, share soup, pass news from house to house. You sit by the window, the bread cooling in your lap as stories spill like warm broth. A cousin is marrying in the spring. The butcher's youngest has taken work as an apprentice. Someone's sister has run off with a traveling actor, a hush scandal you promise not to repeat. You catch yourself laughing, your voice blending with the hush chatter and the baby's soft coos. For a moment, you remember your mother's kitchen table, your sister's head resting on your shoulder, the hush comfort of belonging that you thought you'd left behind. When you stand to leave, Widow Porter presses your hand. "Your kindness has made this street feel like a village," she says. You tuck her praise into your hush heart, another ember to keep your hearth warm. November brings a hush cold, so sharp you see your breath indoors some mornings. You and Thomas spend hush evenings by the fire, darning socks and turning an old shawl into a new petticoat. The hiss of the kettle, the pop of the logs, these small sounds fill the hush dark like a lullaby. You stitch late into the night, your eyes aching but your hands steady. When Thomas finds you asleep in the armchair, needle still threaded through velvet, he lifts you gently and carries you to bed. The hush weight of his arms makes you feel as small and safe as a child carried from a sleepy carriage ride. When the first frost silvers the garden, you stand at the window, watching your breath swirl on the glass. You think, this little house may be small, but every hush corner carries your warmth now. Every stitch in your winter wardrobe, a hush vow that you will keep him. December arrives on a hush wind that rattles your window panes, but inside, your parlor glows brighter than it ever has. You hang a simple pine bough above the mantel, a sprig of holly on the door. Thomas carries home a small goose from the market, and you spend hush hours coaxing it into a feast you hope would make your mother proud. On Christmas Eve, you light every lamp, the hush glow dancing across the old rug and your polished tea set. The neighbors drift in and out, bringing gossip, laughter, and bits of sweet cake wrapped in waxed paper. You stand beside Thomas near the hearth, your hand tucked in his, your heart blooming warm despite the hush winter howling outside. As the hush guests slip away into the night, you and Thomas sit close together on the settee, feet tucked under the same blanket. "We've made it another year," he whispers, voice hush soft against your hair. And you know, deep in your hush soul, that this hearth, small, battered, glowing with your shared kindness, is the truest Christmas gift you've ever known. When the hush frost finally lifts, you stand barefoot on the kitchen threshold, feeling the cold stone under your toes. Thomas laughs when he catches you there, hair loose, skirts lifted just above your ankles as you test the chill. "Spring's here, then," he teases. You only smile and tug him outside, where the little garden waits under a hush blanket of dead leaves and old frostbite. Together you rake, dig, and turn the soil, your gloved hands red and raw, but your spirits blooming with each hush breath of damp earth. At dusk, you lean against the fence, hair smelling of wood smoke, watching Thomas mend a loose board on the back gate. He catches your gaze and winks, a hush promise that this tiny patch of earth will thrive again because of you both. When the first hush crocus flowers bloom at the base of your garden wall, you kneel in the soft dirt, tracing their yellow petals with a finger. The hush hope that lives in small green shoots feels stronger than ever. One hush March morning, a letter arrives from your mother's distant cousin in Bath, an elegant woman you remember only faintly from childhood. Her script curls across creamy paper like a hush garden vine. She writes of her failing health, of rooms that echo too empty now that her grown daughters have married away. She asks gently if you and Thomas might ever visit. "I should like to meet the young man who keeps my Ella Lenina so content," she writes. You read the letter aloud by the hearth that night, Thomas's head resting in your lap as you stroke his hair. The idea of travel stirs something in you, a hush yearning for new sights, new quiet corners where your laughter might echo differently. But the thought of leaving your little house, your hush nest of warm blankets, garden soil, and candlelight, makes your ribs ache with a sweetness that's half love, half longing. When you write back, you promise to visit when the weather grows kinder. You slip a dried crocus blossom into the envelope, a hush promise that distance cannot wither what ties you to family. By early May, a hush conversation blooms between you and Thomas. Shy at first, spoken only at night, voices low as the hush wind tapping at your window. A baby, a child of your own, warm in your arms instead of someone else's. You pull out old scraps of wool, leftover bits from mending his coats and your winter petticoats. By lamplight, you piece them into a hush patchwork, tiny squares of soft gray, muted blue, a splash of lavender that reminds you of the first crocuses. Each hush stitch feels like a promise whispered into the dark, that you will build a cradle of warmth and care for whoever comes. Thomas watches you work, his eyes soft with a hush hope he's almost afraid to name. When the last square is sewn, you fold the blanket and place it in the small cedar chest under your bed. The baby is only a hush dream, but your hands have made a place for that dream to rest. The hush weeks slip past, crocuses to daffodils, daffodils to bluebells. One hush Thursday, you slip your bonnet on and walk alone to the small lending library 2 streets away. Inside, the hush smell of paper and binding glue wraps around you like a blanket. You run your fingers over the spines, rows of dusty volumes, each one a window into some other hush world. You borrow a slim volume of poetry and a new housekeeping manual with watercolor illustrations of fresh spring menus. The librarian, a quiet woman with a gentle stoop, gives you a nod of approval, as if she too knows how these hush pages will keep, your mind blooming even as your body waits for new life to arrive. Back home, you read by the garden gate while Thomas repairs the roof. The hush hum of bees, the warm hush sun on your shoulders, the poetry's soft lines drifting over your lips, all of it stitching you into the hush moment like silk thread through linen. One hush evening, Thomas returns home with a surprise hidden in his coat pocket, a single tiny silver rattle. "It's only a trinket," he says, cheeks flushed, voice hush shy. "I just thought, maybe someday." You hold it in your palm, the cool weight of it pressing a hush promise into your lifeline. You don't speak, just reach for him, pulling him close until you feel his heartbeat steady against your own.
आपके दिन का आगाज और HBL करंट अकाउंट के साथ सब कुछ आसान। मुफ्त इंटरबैंक फंड्स ट्रांसफर, यानी हर पेमेंट बर वक्त और
Later, you place the rattle beside the patchwork blanket in the cedar chest. 2 hush treasures waiting for small hands and soft cries that haven't yet filled your hush house. When you close the lid, you whisper a silent vow that you will hold this hope gently, tending it like your garden's first shoots. Outside, The hushed spring wind rattles the shutters. But inside, your hearth glows bright with tiny, growing secrets. The hush rumors in your street reach even the village midwife, Mrs. Langley, a stout woman with laugh lines deeper than the wrinkles in her linen cap. One hush afternoon, she knocks at your door, basket on her arm, warm bread peeking out from under a clean towel. She settles in your parlor as if she owns the room, the hush air filling with her stories of births, babies, and quiet nights spent waiting for new cries to greet the dawn. She eyes you over her wire spectacles, not unkind, but sharp enough to read your hush secrets. When she pats your hand, her voice lowers to a hush, gentle hush. When your time comes, dear, you'll not be alone. Not in this house, not in this neighborhood. I've helped bring half these children into the world, and I'll help you too. You press the warm bread to your chest when she leaves, the scent of yeast and home filling the hushed corners of your small kitchen. It's a hush promise that this street, this community of worn stoops and flickering gas lamps, will gather close when your hour comes. Windows. Thomas coaxes you out under your shared umbrella, saying you both need air after a week shut up inside with ledgers, sewing, and hush worries. The hush street is empty, but for the glow of gas lamps and the soft bobbing lanterns that some neighbors have strung across their small gates. Flickering pools of light that turn the wet cobblestones into mirrors. You walk arm in arm, the hush rain dampening the hem of your skirts, the hush sound of your footsteps mingling with the hush patter overhead. When Thomas tips his head to kiss you under a swinging paper lantern, you taste rain on his lips and hear your own hush laugh echo through the quiet night. It feels daring, a kiss in the hush street, the world reduced to the hush circle of light and rain, and the hush secret of your warm joined hands. When the hush rain gives way to spring sun, you kneel at the edge of your garden, fingers buried in the hush warm dirt. Your mother comes to visit, her bonnet set slightly crooked, her boots already muddy as she joins you among the early shoots. She hums a hush tune you remember from childhood, hands moving deftly to pinch back weeds and whisper blessings into the hush soil. "It's good work," she says, glancing at your belly as if she can already see the hush promise you hold inside. Good, honest work for a woman who'll soon have more than vegetables to tend. Her hush blessing feels like a prayer stitched into the hush breeze. That night, you press your hands to the garden gate before bed, thanking the hush earth for what it may yet give you. Weeks later, Thomas carries home an old cradle he found through a neighbor's cousin. Plain wood, hush worn at the corners, but solid and steady. Together, you drag it to the parlor, setting it by the window where the moon spills its hush silver over the rug. You kneel to run your palm over the smooth headboard, tracing the hush grain like you trace the tiny fingers of a child not yet born. Thomas crouches beside you, one hand on your back, both of you hush dreaming aloud of soft blankets, lullabies, the hush creak of the cradle as you rock tiny feet into dreams. When you finally go to bed, you peek once more through the hush parlor door, the cradle bathed in moonlight, a hush promise that your home is ready to hold whatever hush blessing may come. Laundry day comes with hush warm wind and the sweet sting of soap on your cracked fingers. You stand in the small yard, pinning linens to the line while Thomas tinkers with the garden gate. Each sheet snaps like a hush flag in the breeze, the hush clean smell wrapping around you. Your mind drifts to lullabies yet unsung, tiny bonnets to be sewn, a hush future that feels so close you could press your ear to your belly and hear it breathing. Thomas calls your name, your real name, soft as a hush vow, and when you glance over your shoulder, you see him leaning on the gate, smile crooked, hands stained with oil and earth. You think, this is it. This hush, ordinary moment of soap and sun and wind and his eyes finding yours, this is the hearth you've built. The hush place where your heart will always land, no matter how wide the world stretches. One hush afternoon, you find yourself kneeling by the cedar chest at the foot of your bed, your fingers brushing aside the baby blanket and the tiny silver rattle to reach an old bundle of letters, tied up with a faded blue ribbon. These hush pages hold stories older than your courtship, your mother's letters to your father when he was away at sea, a hush note from your grandmother folded into a handkerchief, words that smell faintly of lavender and salt air. You spread them out on the hush quilt, tracing each loop of handwriting by the window's warm afternoon light. Thomas finds you there, barefoot, skirts pooled around your knees, eyes distant as you read lives you came from. "You're carrying more than a baby, Nina," he says softly, sitting beside you. "You're carrying every hush story that made you." You tie the letters back up and slip them carefully into the chest, tucked beside the hush future, waiting in tiny clothes and lullabies. By late spring, the hush garden brims with small, scrappy hope, but it's the wild dandelions by the old fence that make you smile most. You kneel among them, skirts gathering pollen and sun, blowing their hush seeds into the wind like tiny wishes. Thomas laughs when he sees you, your bonnet forgotten on the fence post, your hair a hush halo in the breeze. "A proper lady indeed," he teases, stooping to pluck a bright yellow bloom and tuck it behind your ear. You look down at your hands, yellow smudges on your fingers, belly rounding just slightly now beneath your apron. The hush baby stirs once, as if to remind you that wishes do take root and bloom. You carry a single dandelion seed inside, setting it on the windowsill, a hush charm for luck, for new life, for wild things that grow where they will. One hush evening, your mother arrives unannounced, a small beeswax candle wrapped in oilcloth tucked in her reticule. She hands it to you with a hush nod, her eyes warm but serious. "Light this when your hour comes," she says. "It's for safekeeping, for guiding you through." You cradle the hush candle in your palms, like something living, the faint scent of honey and warm summer meadows, drifting up as you close your eyes. That night, you slip the candle onto the small shelf above your bed, where the hush moonlight finds it and kisses its yellow sides. Thomas watches you tuck in the covers, his hand drifting to your belly as if to promise, when the hush hour comes, this light and I will guide you home. The hush cradle sits near the window now, and on quiet nights when sleep won't come, you settle into the old rocking chair beside it, a hush book in your lap, the hush rustle of pages blending with the ticking clock. You read aloud to the hush moon and the baby not yet here, soft lines of poetry, stories of gentle heroines and brave small deeds. You imagine tiny ears pressed close to your hush voice, tiny fingers curling around your thumb. Sometimes Thomas wakes and finds you there, half asleep in the rocker, hush book slipping from your hand. He lifts you gently back to bed, leaving the hush cradle rocking just once, as if to promise that soon, this hush dream will have a heartbeat. When the hush news of your coming child reaches every corner of the street, the women of your lane gather one hush Sunday afternoon. They come with warm pies, soft flannel scraps for baby shirts, and voices low with stories that make you laugh behind your hand. The hush parlor fills with gentle gossip, what names they love, how to keep colic at bay, which lullabies work best when the hush hours stretch long. They show you how to swaddle a pillow, how to hum a hush tune that soothes fussing. Thomas hovers at the door, peeking in with that sheepish smile, overwhelmed but grateful. He knows this gathering of skirts, steam, and soft advice is your real hush armor, a circle of women who will stand watch when your time comes. When they leave at dusk, your house feels full in a new way, not just with things, but with hush echoes of laughter and whispered blessings stitched into the air. One hush morning, Aunt Margaret arrives with a basket full of tatted lace doilies, pieces she's made over quiet winter evenings by the fire. She settles herself at your kitchen table, the kettle rattling softly as you pour the hush steaming tea. You sit together, bent over the basket, unfolding each piece like a letter from another time, delicate rounds of thread that seem too fragile to survive the hush weight of everyday life. "Put these under your baby's things," she says, smoothing a hush doily with her work-rough hands. "It keeps the drafts away, keeps the old spirits sweet." You press the lace to your cheek, breathing in the hush scent of lavender soap she's tucked between the folds. In this hush moment, you feel a hush line stretching back through all the women who've done this before you, brewing tea, stitching cloth, whispering lullabies into the hush-warm corners of small kitchens. Thomas insists on repairing the old mantel clock that sat still for years. He says every child deserves to grow up in a house where you can hear time moving, each hush tick, like a heartbeat through the walls. The hush clockmaker, Mr. Penrose, comes to your parlor one hush afternoon, spectacles perched on his nose, his fingers tracing the brass face like a beloved friend. He shows you how to wind it just so, his hush voice telling you stories of clocks that have survived fires, storms, even wars. When he leaves, he pats your hand. "A steady clock brings steady dreams," he says. "May it keep your hush nights peaceful and your hush hours sweet." That night, you lie awake listening to the hush tick-tick of the new old clock. It sounds like a lullaby, a promise that even when you're bone-tired, the world keeps moving forward, one hush second at a time. The hush days grow softer as spring deepens, windows thrown wide to let in birdsong and the smell of thawing earth. You stand by the sill, your hands resting on the growing curve of your belly, the hush curtains billowing around you like sails. Below, Thomas tends the garden patch. He waves when he catches you watching, lifting a handful of hush new shoots to show how they've taken root. His smile in the hush sun is the same one he gave you when you first agreed to walk out together, alone and unchaperoned, so many months ago. The hush breeze carries in the promise of new beginnings, seeds you've planted in this old brick house, secrets you've whispered into the hush night, and a tiny heartbeat that thuds just beneath your palm. As your time draws closer, Thomas begins setting a hush lantern on the doorstep each hush evening, a sign for the neighbors that you may need help in the hush hours of the night, not in the hush weeks before your baby's first cry. You find yourself folding and refolding tiny linens in the hush nursery corner, squares of flannel soft as new petals, stitched by your mother's hush careful hands. Each one feels like a hush spell, woven with wishes for strong lungs and peaceful dreams. You place them in the old chest of drawers, Thomas sanded smooth just for this, your fingertips trailing the hush, edges of lace trim and embroidery. When you pause to rest, you press one tiny blanket to your cheek, breathing in the hush scent of soap and lavender. The hush room around you hums with secrets, lullabies not yet sung, footsteps not yet heard, laughter not yet echoing off these hush walls. You whisper to the hush room, "Soon," and in the hush quiet, you swear it whispers back. Mary, the housemaid, checks the oil every dusk, adjusting the hush wick with steady hands. "Better ready than sorry," she says with a hush grin, pressing a knit shawl into your lap. "If that babe comes when the moon is thin, we'll see the midwife's feet on the laying before the roosters even stir." That hush glow on your step feels like an invitation to all the gentle souls who pass, a beacon that says, "This house is waiting. This home holds hope. The hush door will open when the time is right." And when you slip outside to breathe the hush night air, you see the lantern flame dancing in the hush breeze. Small, steady, a hush promise that you're not alone. One hush afternoon, a spring storm rolls across the rooftops, the hush rain tapping at your windows, the wind rattling the branches like a soft warning. You and Thomas gather in the front parlor, lamps lit early to keep the hush shadows at bay. You rest your feet on the hearth rug, the hush fire crackling as you stitch a final border on the baby's softest blanket. Thomas sits cross-legged by your feet, reading aloud from the hush local paper, every so often looking up just to watch your hush hands move. The thunder rumbles like an old carriage far off in the hills. But in this hushed room, there's only warmth, the hushed scent of smoke, and the gentle beat of your baby shifting beneath your hand. When the storm passes, you slip outside barefoot to see the hushed garden washed clean, every hushed petal trembling with silver droplets, each tiny leaf shining like the hushed world is brand new. In the hushed evenings when your back aches and your legs feel too heavy to carry, Thomas appears at your side with a hushed cup of warm milk and a drizzle of honey stirred in. You sip it slowly by lamplight. The hush tastes sweet and earthy, your eyes closing with each swallow. He rubs your shoulders with gentle hush hands, humming under his breath. Not quite a song, but close enough to send your thoughts drifting like hush petals on a stream. Some nights you fall asleep right there, your head on his knee, the hush mug still warm on the table beside you. He carries you up the stairs like a hush promise, the hush creak of each step familiar and safe. And when he lays you down, tucks the hush quilt around your shoulders. You whisper, "Stay," and feel the hush shape of his hand curl around yours until sleep takes you. One hush morning, you sit in your sewing nook surrounded by a chaos of soft fabric scraps and spools of thread. The hush cradle blanket is nearly done, but you pause with the hush needle midder, eyes lost in the tangle of color on your lap. You think of all the hush women who have bent over cloth like this. Mothers, sisters, friends, their hush stitches binding lives together in ways no one sees from the outside. You imagine your daughter or son wrapped in this hush blanket years from now, tracing the hush rows of tiny stitches with chubby fingers. When Mary knocks softly and peeks in, she finds you humming, head bowed over the hush work, the hush garden sun falling across your hands like a blessing. Sleep comes fitful these days, the hush baby pressing against your ribs, dreams flickering like shadows in a lantern flame. But sometimes you wake at dawn, the hush room filled with soft pale light and the curtains swaying in the hush morning breeze. You sit up in bed, one hand pressed to your belly, the hush cradle a quiet promise by the wall. Thomas still sleeps beside you, his hand curled loosely at your hip, his breath a hush rhythm that matches the slow, steady thrum inside you. You watch the hush light grow brighter, listen to the hush sparrows chatter in the hedge, and feel the hush world gathering itself around your family like a quilt pulled snug on a cold night. Some mornings you rise before him, feet bare on the hush floorboards, careful not to wake the hush house as you light the kettle for tea and whisper to the hush dawn, "We are ready." As your time draws close, you prepare the hush basket, the one every neighbor woman says you must have ready by the door. It's lined with fresh linen, tiny cloths folded with hush precision, a flask of broth, a clean nightgown, a candle stub tucked in just in case the hush lamps flicker out. You pack and repack it 3 times over, each item like a hush talisman. When you tie the wicker lid shut, you place your palm over the hush top, whispering a hush promise. When it is time, all will be well. Thomas peeks into the hush hallway, eyes soft. He touches the basket's handle, his hush hand brushing yours. "We're ready," he says, though you both know readiness is just a hush wish. When it comes to birth and babies and old bones that creak open to let new life through. Still, you stand a little taller when you see that hush basket waiting, a promise that when the hush hour comes, you'll be held, you'll be safe, you'll be home. It's a hush dusk when you first hear the hush knock, 3 soft raps that echo through the front hall. Mary appears at your door, her cheeks flushed. "The midwife's here, ma'am." You press your hand to the hush ache, looming low in your belly, the hush pulse that says it's time. You find Thomas waiting at the foot of the stairs, lantern in hand, his eyes wide but steady. Mrs. Linton, the midwife, bustles in with her hush bag of well-worn tools, soft cloths, bottles of camphor oil, a tiny pair of shears wrapped in linen. She places her lantern on the hush mantel, its hush flame throwing shadows across the parlor walls. "It'll be a long hush night," she says, rolling up her sleeves. "But you'll do just fine, pet. We'll keep the hush hearth warm and the hush kettle singing." And so it begins. The hush hours of breath and hush moans, of Thomas's hand steady on yours, of Mary's soft hush hums drifting down the hallway like a cradle song. In the hush moments between hush pains, you drift in and out of the hush room, your mind wandering to the garden where fresh linens flap on the hush line, starched and bleached just for this day. You see Mary's careful hands pinning each hush sheet to the rope, her hush voice warning away the hush crows. You think of your mother's hush tailies, how clean sheets ward off evil spirits, how lavender tucked in the folds keeps the hush room sweet. Between each hush wave of pain, you imagine the sheets swaying in the hush wind, whispering secrets to the hush moon. All the women who've labored before you, hush prayers stitched into hems, and hush threads woven through the night. When the hush next wave comes, you squeeze Thomas's hand and whisper, "Hold me." And he does, steady as a hush oak, while the hush garden sleeps outside. The hush clock on the mantel ticks louder than ever tonight, each hush second stretching out like a hush mile. You focus on it when the pain crests, counting the hush beats between each hush wave. Thomas wipes your forehead with a cool cloth, his hush voice murmuring small nonsense phrases you can't quite catch, but the hush tone soothes you all the same. The midwife hums as she works, folding hush towels and pouring hush water into the basin, her eyes flicking to the hush clock every now and then. Tick, your hush heart pounds. Tick, your hush breath hitches. Tick, and then the hush moment when it all shifts. The hush world narrows to a hush cry inside you, the hush promise you've carried for months ready to open wide and greet the hush light. There is a hush, hush, then the sharp hush cry you've waited for all these hush months. The hush room falls still for just a heartbeat, everyone frozen in the soft glow of the midwife's lantern dot by the hush, hush morning. Thomas writes the hush name in the family Bible, the hush ink smudging just slightly as he pauses to look back at you and your hush sleeping babe. You watch him through heavy-lidded eyes, your hush body weary, but your heart wide awake. He murmurs the hush syllables aloud, the hush new names slipping into the hush ledger alongside generations of Weatherbs. You wonder what stories will fill this hush child's pages, hush secrets whispered by the hearth, hush wishes sewn into garden rows, hush footsteps that will echo through this old house long after you are gone. Thomas closes the hush Bible and tucks it back on the shelf, then comes to your side to press a hush kiss to your forehead. Outside, the hush sparrows begin their hush chatter, a hush cradle song for this hush brand new life. Thomas lets out a breath that sounds half like a hush sob, half like a hush laugh. Mary presses her apron to her mouth, eyes shining with hush relief. The midwife lays the tiny hush bundle in your arms, warm, damp, wriggling with the hush strength of new life. The baby's eyes squeeze shut against the hush lamplight, the hush curls of dark hair already damp on their crown. "Perfect," the midwife whispers. "Just perfect." You trace the hush curve of a cheek with your trembling fingertip. Outside, the hush rain has stopped. A hush dawn waits at the edges of the hush window, ready to slip in with its hush promise. You've done it, hush mother. The hush baby sleeps tucked in the cradle by the fire, a tiny hush hand curled by their soft pink cheek. Mary brings in the steaming basin and fresh cloths, humming a hush lullaby you half remember from your own childhood. You sit close, learning each hush motion, the cloth dipped, wrung gently, pressed to the baby's hush skin. The hush water glistens on the small round belly, on the hush little toes that curl and uncurl like flower petals in the sun. Thomas stands behind you, arms crossed loosely, his hush smile warm and stunned at once. "So small," he whispers. And you nod, because you know, everything you hold in these hush hands is both fragile and fierce, a hush spark of life that will grow and tumble and laugh one day across the garden lawn. When the hush bath is done, you wrap your child in a soft linen and rock them by the window where the hush morning spills in golden and good. In the hush weeks that follow, word travels down every hush street. A new baby in the weather house. Letters arrive in neat envelopes sealed with wax. Soft congratulations from your mother's cousins in Derbyshire, an aunt in Bath, even your old school friend in York who writes, "May your hearth always be warm and your cradle always be full." You sit at your hush desk in the corner parlor, replying in your best copperplate script by lamplight, while the baby sleeps on a hush blanket near your feet. Your hand aches, but you keep writing, because each letter feels like a hush thread sewing you into a world much bigger than this little house. Thomas teases you for your fuss. You'll wear out your pen nib at this rate. But he says it with a hush grin, pressing a kiss to the crown of your head before heading out to check on the hush garden beds, already stirring with early shoots. By spring's hush turn, you find yourself by the hush garden gate most afternoons, babe swaddled to your chest as you watch Thomas dig new beds. You learn the hush names of herbs you'd only known from the cook's shelf: sweet marjoram, tansy, pennyroyal. Each hush leaf a promise of comfort when coughs come or fevers whisper at night. Sometimes you bend to show the baby a hush sprig of rosemary, the hush scent clinging to tiny fists. The hush birds chatter in the hedge. The hush air smells of warm earth and damp stone. And you think, this small patch of soil will hold us all. When you finally go in, you press the hush herb sprig into your journal, letting its hush oil stain the page like a memory you never want to lose. You find comfort in the hush rituals, the hush bread rising in the kitchen, its soft yeasty scent drifting into every hush corner of the house. While the baby naps, you knead the hush dough with steady hush strokes, your mind drifting with each press and fold. When the loaf is done, you set it on the hush sill to cool, its golden crust catching the hush light. Neighbors pass the hush gate on their way to market, and some pause to wave, one old woman tapping the hush fence post with her stick in quiet approval. You slice the first hush piece for Thomas, who breaks it in half to share with you before you even ask. You think, this is how it should be: a loaf on the sill, a baby in the cradle, and the hush world outside walking by in soft, small steps. One hush evening, you find Thomas at the hush writing desk, pen scratching steady in the hush glow of the oil lamp. He looks up, smiling sheepish. "I'm writing a letter," he says. "For them, for when they're grown." He reads it aloud, voice low. "When you find this, may you know how much you are wanted. May you remember that on hush nights like this one, we dreamed good dreams for you, all tucked safe beneath this roof." You come to stand behind him, pressing your hush palm to his shoulder, your other hand resting on the hush cradle's edge. We keep our hush secrets in ledgers and letters, you think. So one day, when they need strength, they'll find these hush words waiting. When the baby sleeps through a hush afternoon, you take up your embroidery hoop for the first time in weeks. The hush needle feels light between your fingers, the hush thread slipping through the linen in tiny, careful stitches. You choose soft colors: faded rose, hush green, a bit of dusty blue. Each petal you form is a hush promise, each hush vine curling around the border like a hush blessing for your child's future. Thomas peeks in to find you hunched over your hush work, a hush smile spreading across his face. "Still the finest stitches in Kensington," he teases, brushing a kiss to the crown of your hair. You only hum in reply, too deep in the hush rhythm of needle and thread, each pull and tuck a lullaby in cloth. The hush spring sun finds its way across the hush floorboards, warming the old wood and dancing in soft hush patterns. You stand by the window, babe in your arms, rocking gently to the hush rhythm of your heartbeat. Dust motes swirl in the hush light, catching on the baby's soft lashes. Thomas's footsteps creak behind you, the hush boards telling you he's close even before. His hush arms slip around your waist from behind. "We'll fix that loose plank next month," he whispers into your hair. "I'd rather have the hush floorboards creak," you murmur back. "I like hearing you coming." And you think how small hush sounds make a house feel alive. A hush baby's breath, a hush door swinging open, hush floorboards that tell you you're never alone. By midsummer, Mrs. Parker next door appears with a hush tap at the garden gate, a battered tin teapot in her hands. "A hush housewarming," she says with a shy grin. You invite her in, pouring strong hush tea into delicate cups you're almost afraid to chip. She tells you hush stories of this street, how old Mr. Fenwick keeps bees behind his shed, how the rag and bone man once found a hush coin from Cromwell's day in the gutter, all while the baby sleeps in the hush basket at your feet. Before she leaves, she pats your arm and says, "No hush secrets between good neighbors, mind." You nod, even though you know some hush secrets are meant to be kept close, written in your hush journal, hidden beneath the hush hearthstone, for only your child to find one day. Some afternoons you steal a hush moment for yourself, under the old pear tree in the back garden, its branches heavy with green fruit, its hush leaves whispering lullabies when the hush breeze drifts through. You lay the baby on a hush blanket nearby, watching tiny fists grasp at the hush sunlight filtering through the leaves. In your lap, your hush journal rests open, pages filling with quiet sketches of pears and hush blossoms, of the cradle and the hush lace curtains that sway at dusk. Thomas sometimes joins you, stretching out beside you on the grass, shoes off, one arm pillowed behind his head. "All this," he murmurs, "for a single hush seed in the ground." And you think how families grow like hush orchards. From one hush root, a whole canopy of hush dreams. At hush dusk, when the baby is tucked into their cradle, you and Thomas light the hush lamps one by one, each tiny flame flickering to life like a hush vow. You stand together at the front window, looking out at the hush street, at other hush windows glowing warm in the hush night. Thomas wraps his arm around you, pressing his hush lips to your temple. "No matter how dark it gets," he says softly, "we keep the hush light burning." And you know he means more than just the hush oil in the lamp. He means the hush kindness in your words, the hush patience in your touch, the hush hope that you carry, even when storms knock at the roof. The hush lamp flickers. You breathe in the hush scent of warm oil, old wood, and the hush soft cradle song that lives forever in this hush house. The hush baby catches their first cold in late summer. It begins with a hush sneeze in the cradle, then a soft whimper that wakes you in the hush dark. You brew a hush tonic from chamomile and thyme, just as your mother did, crushing the hush herbs in a warm basin of water. Thomas sits across from you on the hush nursery chair, his elbows on his knees, watching you dab the hush baby's brow with a soft cloth. Outside, the hush wind stirs the shutters, but inside, the hush cradle rocks steady, the hush lamp flickers warm. When the hush fever breaks, you feel it like a hush prayer answered, the baby's breath deep and slow, your own hush tears hidden in your sleeve. Thomas reaches over and squeezes your hand in the hush quiet. Some hush nights make a family feel stronger, you think. Not for their ease, but for the hush storms they weather. When the baby sleeps again, you pull down the hush old trunk from the cupboard above the wardrobe. Inside, you find hush pieces of your girlhood, a lace collar, a hush ribbon from your first dance, a tiny doll with painted hush eyes. You fold them into new hush bundles, keepsakes that may one day be slipped into small hands to carry on. You tuck a new hush lock of the baby's hair into a hush envelope, label it carefully, and place it atop your hush memories. Thomas peeks in, resting his hush shoulder against the doorframe. "That trunk will be heavy with hush stories one day," he says. You hush smile, knowing that every hush ribbon and scrap of cloth is a line in a lullaby your child may hum to themselves, long after you've closed your hush eyes. Some hush evenings, Thomas reads aloud by the fire, his hush voice wrapping around the room like a soft blanket. You sit near the hearth, the baby dozing on your lap, your hush eyes tracing the hush flames while the hush words float past. Sometimes it's poetry, lines about hush roses and hush dreams. Sometimes it's travel stories, hush adventures from lands you'll likely never see, but can hush imagine. Palm trees, hush rivers, far-off mountains silvered by hush moonlight. You rest your head on Thomas's hush shoulder, feeling the hush rumble of his voice beneath your cheek. The hush baby stirs once, then sighs back into sleep. Some words don't need to be remembered, you think, only heard in the hush of the night, like the crackle of the fire and the heartbeat under my hush ear. The hush leaves begin to turn, gold and copper drifting onto the garden path. You carry the baby out bundled in a soft shawl, hush breath puffing little clouds into the crisp hush air. Thomas joins you under the hush pear tree, lifting the baby onto his shoulder for the first time. The hush giggles bubbling out like warm cider on a hush harvest day. You hold your hush shawl close, watching father and child spin slow circles under the hush canopy. The hush orchard fence creaks as the neighbor's cat slips through, flicking its tail in quiet greeting. You think about how seasons will come and go, hush leaves falling and budding again, while these hush moments tuck themselves into the hush roots of your life. As the hush nights grow longer, you prepare for the hush chill ahead, sealing windows, folding extra blankets at the foot of the hush bed. In the hush kitchen, you make a new batch of candles, each hush wick dipped and hung to dry from the mantel. You write a hush list in your journal: salt pork to cure, hush preserves to bottle, hush socks to mend. The hush baby sits in their cradle, eyes wide, watching you move about your tiny hush domain. Thomas kisses your cheek when you sit to rest, one hush candle flickering between you on the table. Its hush flame dances in the hush glass pane behind, a hush star to carry you through the winter dark. So many hush nights still ahead, you think, and all of them ours. On a hush afternoon, you find a scrap of old lace in the bottom of your sewing box, left over from your wedding gown. You turn it over in your hush hands, the hush threads delicate yet strong. You think about all the hush stitches that brought you here, the hush wedding vows, the hush letters, the hush cradle that now rocks softly by the window. With careful hush fingers, you stitch the lace into a tiny collar for the baby's hush nightgown. Thomas wanders in from the hush garden, hair damp from a passing shower. He sees the hush lace and smiles. A bit of the past stitched into the future, he says, pressing his hush lips to your forehead. You nod, tucking the hush collar into the basket of baby clothes. Some hush things are worth saving and passing on. There's a hush sparrow's nest in the hedge by the garden wall. You find it while clipping hush herbs, a tiny tangle of hush twigs cradling 3 pale eggs. You show Thomas, who lifts the baby high to see. Soft and safe, he murmurs, much like our little home, eh? You watch the hush mother sparrow dart back and forth, each trip a hush promise that her chicks will be fed, kept warm, protected from the hush chill that will come with dusk. Later that night, you rock the baby to sleep, hush thoughts of the nest in her mind. The world may be big and noisy beyond these hush walls, but in this hush house, you've built a nest strong enough for your own fledgling dreams. The hush pantry smells of dried herbs, hush spices, and cool stone walls. You run your hush fingers over the jars of jam, the hush tins of tea, the small hush bundle of lavender hanging from a hook. When the hush baby cries, you hum a lullaby right there in the hush pantry, your voice echoing off the hush shelves. Thomas finds you there, baby tucked against your shoulder, hush song still trembling in the air. Stocked and safe, he murmurs, resting a hand on your back. We'll make it through the winter. You hush smile, pressing your cheek to the baby's soft head. So many hush comforts come from simple shelves and the hush patience that fills each jar. When the hush market day comes, you tie on your bonnet and wrap the hush baby snug against your chest. You and Thomas walk hand in hand down the hush street, your hush basket swinging from your elbow. You pass stalls heaped with hush cabbages, hush apples, and thick hush loaves of bread still warm from the oven. Neighbors greet you with soft smiles, eyes drifting to the hush baby's tiny bonnet peeking out. You fill your hush basket with potatoes and hush carrots, planning a hearty hush stew for the cold nights ahead. Back home, Thomas lifts the hush baby high, pretending to sniff the fresh hush vegetables. You giggle, swatting him playfully with a hush carrot. In the hush kitchen that evening, you slice and stir, the hush stew bubbling slow, while your hush laughter drifts through the warm walls. The hush frost comes overnight, a silver sheen across the hush garden, hush lacework on the window panes. You wake early to see it, wrapping the hush baby in blankets and stepping out onto the hush porch. Thomas stands beside you, his breath misting in the hush dawn. You watch the hush sun rise slow, turning the frost into a hush shimmer that slips away with the hush warmth. Inside, you light the hush hearth, the hush logs snapping to life. The hush baby sleeps on your lap, the hush cold kept at bay by the hush fire, and the hush quilt draped over your knees. Outside, the world glitters cold and quiet, but inside, your hush cradle rocks on, warm and steady, through the hush chill. You find the old hush rocking chair in the attic, the one your mother sat in when you were small enough to hush cradle. You dust it off, oil the squeaking joints, and carry it downstairs to the warm hush corner by the window. That evening, you rock the hush baby to sleep there, the soft hush creak of the wood blending with the hush tick of the clock. Thomas sits on the hush rug, reading the hush paper, one hand resting on your slippered foot. The hush baby's breath slows, warm against your collarbone. You think of all the hush stories this chair could tell, if only wood could whisper. Generations of hush mothers, hush babies, hush lullabies, all woven into its hush graying. When the hush candle gutters, you lift the hush baby gently to the cradle, the hush rocking chair creaking on, even after you've gone to bed. You've always known about the hush drawer in the writing desk, the one with a tiny brass hush key hidden behind a loose panel. It's where you keep your hush letters, the ones Thomas wrote before you married, each hush word still warm on the page. Tonight, when the hush baby is down and the hush house hums with quiet, you unlock the hush drawer. You unfold a hush letter, smoothing the hush creases. His words smell faintly of hush ink and time. You trace the hush loops of his handwriting. Dearest, it begins, when you read this, know that no matter the miles of the years, my hush promise stands, to keep our hearth warm and our hush dreams safe. You refold the hush letter, lock the hush drawer, and slip the hush key back into its secret place. The hush treasure sealed away, like a soft vow humming under the floorboards. There's a hush mirror above your dresser, a hush oval glass ringed in carved roses. One hush morning, you catch your reflection as you pin your hair. Your hush eyes look tired, but kind. Your hush hands, once soft as the inside of rose petals, now carry the hush lines of daily work. The hush baby babbles on the bed behind you, a giggle bouncing off the hush walls. Thomas appears in the doorway, catching you watching yourself. He smiles, crossing the hush floor to stand behind you. He rests his hush chin on your shoulder, meeting your hush eyes in the glass. You've never looked lovelier, he says, voice a hush murmur in your ear. You hush smile, knowing this reflection holds so many versions of you, girl, wife, mother, all layered like hush lace in a keepsake drawer. A hush storm rolls in one hush evening, rain drumming the roof like a hush march, thunder muttering at the hush horizon. You light the hush oil lamp, its glow a hush sun in the corner of the hush room. The hush baby startles at the first hush crack of thunder. You hush soothe them, pressing your hush lips to the soft crown of their head. Thomas checks the hush window latches, the hush flicker of lightning, catching the lines on his hush brow. Together, you curl on the hush settee, the hush baby between you, the hush lamp throwing warm circles on the hush walls. Outside, the world rattles and roars, but inside your hush cradle rocks steady. Storms will always come, you think. But so will hush lamps, hush hearths, and hush arms to hold us close. As the hush year draws toward its hush end, you sit by the hush window, stitching tiny hush clothes for when the baby grows another hush inch or two. Each hush stitch is a line of hush hope, a promise that spring will come again. Thomas passes behind you, hush hand brushing your shoulder in wordless hush comfort. He knows that this hush work, the mending, the hush planning, the hush dreaming, is a hush spell you cast over the cradle, binding it safe through long hush nights. You pause to watch the hush snow begin its soft hush fall outside. Each hush flake drifts like a hush wish, tiny threads weaving a hush blanket over the hush rooftops. Inside, you tuck another hush stitch into the hem of tomorrow. One hush dawn, you find your mother's old shawl folded at the back of a cedar hush chest. The wool still smells faintly of lavender sachets and hush fires long burned down. You wrap it around your shoulders while you hush rock the baby. The hush threads slip over your collarbone, each hush stitch a reminder that you too were once cradled safe. Thomas passes you a cup of hush tea, steam rising like a hush ghost in the pale light. He rests a hush kiss on the baby's brow, then yours. The hush house hums with the soft breath of generations, each hush thread binding you to the past and weaving a warm hush future. There's a hush clock on the mantel, a brass hush carriage clock that ticks softly all night. You listen to it as you hush rock, hush breath in rhythm with its hush click. Sometimes you imagine it whispers hush secrets about how fast days pass, how quickly hush babies grow, how a hush cradle is empty one day and a hush bed is full the next. When Thomas comes to wind the hush key, he catches you staring at the hush brass face. "It keeps good time," he says. You hush smile, pressing your hush cheek to the hush baby's soft head. Yes, you think. And for now, time is our friend. One hush morning, Thomas brings home a single hush bloom, a rose just shy of full hush blossom, petals blush pink and rain speckled. He places it in a hush glass bottle on your bedside table, where the hush baby sleeps in a hush wicker bassinet close by. The rose leans gently toward the hush sunlight, its hush perfume mingling with the hush scent of milk and soap. When you brush your hush lips to its velvet petal, you think, this house may be small, but it holds hush gardens I could never have imagined. You stand in the hush garden, hanging tiny hush clothes on the line, white cotton nappies, hush bonnets, small hush socks. The hush breeze carries the scent of fresh soap and new life. Thomas kneels nearby, hush basket beside him, clipping hush pegs to your dress hem playfully until you hush laugh, swatting him with a damp sleeve. Over the hedge, the hush neighbor calls out a soft greeting, and you feel a hush warmth in your chest. This hush village of quiet kindness, this hush life stitched from ordinary chores and hush giggles. You glance at the hush cradle through the window. It waits, hush and ready, for the hush dreamer napping in the sun. In the hush cupboard, you keep a single hush candle, wrapped in linen, scented faintly of beeswax. Your mother gave it to you when you wed, whispering, a hush light for darkest nights. Tonight, when the hush baby's fever spikes, you strike the hush match. The hush flame flickers strong, dancing shadows across the hush cradle. Thomas holds a cool hush cloth to the hush baby's brow while you hum an old hush hymn. Hours pass, the hush candle burning lower, the hush baby's breath growing steady once more. When dawn breaks, the hush flame gutters out, its hush promise kept, just as your mother promised. You tuck the hush stub back into its hush cloth. Some hush lights are meant for when you need them most. It's early yet The hush street lamps still glow faint outside your kitchen window. You stand at the range, toasting bread on a wire rack, hush butter waiting in a small ceramic dish. Thomas sits at the hush table, sleeves rolled, half asleep but smiling. The baby sleeps in a hush wicker basket at his feet, small hush breaths mingling with the soft clink of your breakfast spoons. You spread hush butter thick, the scent warm and sweet. You both whisper about tomorrow's errands, a hush market list, a hush visit to the tailor. Small murmurs, shared hush plans, your voices brushing together like warm hush wool. Outside, the hush city stirs, but here, the hush hearth keeps its secret, that even plain toast can taste like forever when shared by two. You find Thomas by the hearth, mending a tear in his cuff. Awkward needle clutched like a pen, brows drawn in hush concentration. You hush laugh when he pricks his thumb, and he hush grins, eyes crinkling as you settle beside him with your own hush darning basket. "Teach me properly?" he asks. So you guide his hands, hush stitches neat and strong. His hush fingers are rough from ledgers and ink, but patient, careful under yours. It's such a simple hush thing, this mending, but each tiny knot feels like a promise that hush tears can be stitched, hush holes patched, hush hearts made whole again. Later, when the hush baby finally sleeps through a restless night, you and Thomas sit on the hush settee, only a hush candle between you. His hand covers yours. No gloves now, only hush skin on hush skin. His thumb hush traces the hush line of your knuckles, the hush band of gold that binds your names together. In the hush flicker, your eyes meet. You remember every hush letter, every hush walk, every hush vow you whispered before the hush altar. Thomas squeezes your fingers. No matter how the world rattles outside, he hush murmurs, "We will keep this hush candle burning." And so you do. Autumn hush leaves drift against the parlor glass. You hush watch them swirl while the hush baby babbles on a blanket at your feet. Thomas hums an old hush tune, oiling the hinges on the hush front door. His voice hush weaves through the hush tick of the mantel clock. You wonder how something as small as a hush falling leaf can make your heart ache with so much hush sweetness. A hush cradle, a hush husband, a hush hearth that stays warm, no matter how the hush seasons turn. You hush rock the cradle one last time tonight, the hush baby's breath warm against your palm. Thomas dozes in the hush chair, book half open on his lap, hush spectacles slipping down his nose. The hush house hums with ordinary magic, the hush clock ticking steady, the hush kettle cooling, the hush candle flickering low. And deep in your chest, you feel it, this hush truth. The cradle you rock now rocks you too. A hush circle, hush stitched tight by soft vows, warm bread, mended sleeves, and hush kisses before dawn. In this hush hearth, secrets rest gentle and safe, and you, hush dreamer, drift off knowing the cradle keeps on. Thanks for drifting through this story with me. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always soothing to imagine we're all falling asleep under the same stars. Like and subscribe if this brought you peace tonight. I'll be back soon with another quiet legend from the edges of time. Sleep well, and let the myths keep whispering.